is called in the theory of community of practice, reification. The outward manifestation of your professional engagement. And that is what LIASA as a professional body is about. This tool facilitates us being a professional body. Social media. We continue to struggle with the regulation of social media, and you might laugh at me for saying such a stupid sentence. We know that social media by its very nature can't be regulated, but the people who use that can certainly be regulated in terms of codes of conduct, and that is what we're working on. The other concern that we also have is that Facebook seems to be the main vehicle of conversation, but many Facebook pages have sprung up over the years uncontrolled, and even the current officers within the branches do not have access to those Facebook pages. And in that regard, LIASA does not have a good grip on its image. So Synovia fulfilled the mandate to do a Facebook audit, actually a social media audit. And it's been really hard going with people who have not answered, but also people who say we just don't have the credentials. So after conference tomorrow, we are going to close down all Facebook and other social media pages which has LIASA implicitly associated with it, so that we can have a better grip on the LIASA brand. So as is indicated there, most of the branches use the social media, Facebook as their social media platform of choice. And we have indicated that the administrators or editors within a branch or an interest group should share that responsibility with the national PRO as well as the chair-elect. In February, when we had that crazy picture, there were some other proper pictures as well. When we had that crazy picture, it was also Community of Practice Weekend. And we gathered together the PROs of each branch and interest group. I think the chair-elects came along as well. PROs, secretaries and treasurers. Good financial practice is absolutely crucial, colleagues. And we were hoping that we could facilitate and ease that handover from the previous term. You will see when we come closer to the end of the agenda that that quite wasn't the case, as in the case. And we provided training to the PROs to the extent we expected them to go home and put out their own branch newsletters. And I think that Nora has indicated that the quality of the newsletters has improved. So, further projects that we've been doing is focusing on policies. So I know I said to you at the beginning of this conversation that we didn't pay much attention to strategy, but we are interested in the infrastructure. And while we were investigating a new structure for LIASA, proposed new structure for LIASA, business as usual must stay at home, must continue at home. And if we're talking about principles of good governance, then surely we should be looking at good governance in our backyards, and that is what we were doing. I spoke briefly about it before, but we have become very stringent about LIASA branding, and we've become very stringent about the LIASA logo, and the LIASA branding policy is in its final stages. This is what it looks like. You can all come stand by me. Okay. I don't think it was the branding policy because they agreed that we're going to do the branding policy. Maybe it's the next slide. Let's have a look. And so our convener of governance and policies undertook a process of examining all the documents that we have made public and assisted to some instance or another to fix those. And as you can see on the screen, the on ice. In last year's presidential report, it was noted that the harmonization of the constitutions of branches and interest groups was needed. But in the current state that we find ourselves, this is not possible. And so it's noted by our convener as on ice. In the RNO, we need to tighten up our HR policies, our HR practice. And we started with a leave policy. We have a marketing and advocacy policy that has passed the RIP Council. And we are talking about the corporate identity guidelines. And of course, the CPD policy has been done by the Professional Body Advisory Committee. Annual conference manual drives me crazy. Always something that you don't know. Somebody knows something. What when we all go away? Who's going to know what to do? What are we leaving behind for them? Some type of information management. So on the screen, these are the areas that we have identified that need attention, and we just don't have time this very moment. But we undertake in the next cycle to attend to these where appropriate. Our social media policy, you may remember we've had one for a while, but it does need to be adjusted as that environment, that very, very strong, ever-changing environment changes. The rest of the policies as well, we identified the need for a fundraising and sponsorship document. There's been tension often between the regions seeking sponsorship and the national relationships with sponsors and the duplication, and are concerned that this may create pressure on our sponsors. The disciplinary procedure, which is a requirement within the professional body stable, has been presented to RIP Council, and a sexual harassment policy is urgently needed. And no, I'm not hiding anything. Let's speak very briefly about strategic stakeholder relationships. We continue to engage with the practicalities as well as the strategic pressures, as I've indicated before, while we were on the road in the past while. Therefore, the president of LIASA remains an ex-officio member of NCLIS, the National Council for Library and Information Services. And as you may remember earlier, we saying that we need to write letters. This is another letter. LIASA is a professional body for this country. We're not an ex-officio. Our voices need to be heard at the highest level of governance around our profession. This is another thing too, after we sleep enough and wake up, we have to do as a matter of urgency. Because as many of you know, yesterday the council was introduced in this very room. And it would appear that LIASA didn't get the recognition that it deserved in terms of its professional body status and the important role we have to play in the conversations around National LIS policy. I remain a board member of the SABDC in my own capacity, so it's not as though the LIASA president is the board member. And I am also the chair of the steering committee for the South African Book Fair, very successfully run this year in its third iteration. Reading development is absolutely crucial to the conversations we have in our profession. We know reading changes lives. We know that through reading, people can change their circumstances into more successful ones, and through reading, we are going to achieve that NDP 2030 of making citizens in the knowledge economy for 2030. And as Cyril said last week, our president said last week, go to the library and get a book out in your own language. Yes, you can do that, but it is of little use if you can't read or if you can't read with understanding. Reading development is crucial to our profession, and therefore LIASA persists in having a voice, and we take our place on the value chain around reading development that starts with paper manufacturers. So just a few indicators. LIASA had a stand at South African Book Fair, and we're grateful to Johannesburg, to Gauteng South, to the colleagues from Johannesburg who came to assist us over the weekend. And then on the bottom picture are the colleagues from the Eastern Cape. from Port Elizabeth, they make such a fuss every year around about South African Library Week. They do library marches. They march for libraries, they march up to the municipalities, and they are heard and they're acknowledged for that. I was very proud to be asked to be part of that photograph, and then another picture of us at the SA Book Fair this year. At every opportunity I get, I market LIASA. So I was asked to speak at the Sunday Times Literary Awards a few weeks ago to do the opening and welcome. And for our sins, we got a picture, rather ugly one I must say, in the Sunday Times on the 15th of September. But if you read the small print, you will see LIASA's name there. This is what we need to do, colleagues. We need to be seen. I went to Aflia at the end of May. Those photos are on that phone that I donated to some stranger in Spain. So I'm busy rebuilding that. And at every opportunity we get, not only do we market LIASA, but we also engage with LIASA colleagues. And by the way, that colleague on that picture is one of the Librarian of the Year finalists. Please give a round of applause. Thank you. What struck me about that meeting at Aflia was the posters and how these posters showed what our colleagues on the African continent are doing about SDGs. We do not do enough to show what we're doing. We do lots. The other day, when Michael was talking, we saw the Australian book about the SDGs.